Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video where I have in my paws the newest ambient lighting edit from Hourglass. This is the Golden Rose edit. I'm going to be showing all of my thoughts, which of these shades you might already have, what is existing in your collection, and showing you how it all looks on my skin. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so Hourglass have launched a 4-pan as opposed to their usual 6-pan for holiday ambient lighting edit. This little number contains blushes, a bronzer and a highlighter, but omits the usual finishing powders that are always present in those holiday 6-pan palettes. So this is a more condensed version without finishing powder. We have 2 blushes, a bronzer and a highlight. Both of the blushes are in the ambient lighting formula, so no strobe blushes, so less sort of shimmer and metallic finish blushes, more of a luminous soft candlelit glow type of blushes, and the same thing goes for the highlighter. This is their strobe powder as opposed to their metallic, so a more sort of glowy, luminous, delightful sheen as opposed to metallic finishes all around in this palette. It will set you back £67 and each of the pans are the exact same weight as the usual holiday palette, so 1.4 grams per pan for an overall 5.6 grams. So the exact same pan size as in their holiday palettes, just 2 less, giving us a more compact size, more travel friendly size, more condensed version. This is the Leopard palette from holiday last year, 2023. And one of the things that really annoys me about these palettes is it has that magnetic closure, but the lid will not stay up by itself. So I definitely prefer the packaging of these little 4 pans because it will stay up on your counter or if in your hand if you're trying to use the mirror that is inside. I really like that. The packaging looks and feels more luxurious to me than the holiday palettes have more recently. But what shades do we have in here? Are there any repeats? Do you already have any or all of the shades in this little number? Let's check the names. So the highlighter is Celestial Strobe Light. This has previously occurred in the Leopard palette and the Butterfly palette, a repeat previously existing shade, but a beautiful one nonetheless. We then have the first blush, which is Iridescent Rose. This was also in the Leopard palette from last year and has previously featured in Ghost also. Next blush is Dim Infusion, which I don't believe has been in any holiday palettes, but is a permanent single blush in Hourglass's collection. And finally, the bronzer is Golden Bronze Light, which has previously featured in Unlocked. So very sadly for many of us who own a lot of Hourglass palettes that there are no brand new shades in here, all previously existing or re-promoted shades for this little palette. But if you don't own any of these palettes from Hourglass, a really beautiful little selection of very popular, some of their most beautiful shades. So a really nice condensed version. If you know the 6 pans are too high a price point for you or you missed out on them this year, this is a really nice selection of shades for a medium and lighter skin tone. It seems like this is a Selfridges exclusive at the moment, and I would expect it, like all of these palettes, to be limited edition, although it doesn't state it clearly whether it is limited edition or permanent. These are almost always limited edition, so don't expect it to hang around forever. But usually Hourglass do better than this when it comes to their holiday palettes. We usually see multiple options for different skin tones. We've only got this one. I'm not sure if others are going to be available in other locations. Maybe this is the one that's exclusive to Selfridges and other retailers will get other varieties. I'm not sure. At the moment, this is the only one that launched at Selfridges. So that's sad because it's not going to be usable for anyone sort of deeper than about a medium skin tone. I mean, as you can see when I swatched the lighter blush, that's not really going to show up on me, certainly not in summer. So anyone with a, you know, deeper than a medium skin tone, this is not going to be of much use. Now, when I first got this, I thought that I even put this on my Instagram, so embarrassing for me. I thought that I didn't own either of the blushes. I looked at my previous Hourglass palettes and thought, I don't have either of those blushes. Yay me, it's, you know, perfect. I like to have new shades. I love Hourglass blushes. And then I discovered that Iridescent Rose is actually in the Leopard palette, which I do own, but let's swatch them together and see what you think, because I don't think these are the same. Now, we know that Hourglass, you know, their blushes and often their highlighters and even their bronzers often have this sort of swirling, which means that every single one of their palettes or their blushes or their bronzers is slightly different to the next, depending on how the swirl has gone, which is something I don't love about the brand, because I want to see swatches and then buy a product based off of those swatches. And if mine is going to be completely different to the one I purchased based on swatching it, that's not ideal. So I think that's partially what's going on. So this is Iridescent Rose in the Leopard palette, and the top blush here is Iridescent Rose in the new palette. So here we have them next door to each other on that top row. I mean, based on seeing them next to each other, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, they're going to be wildly different. You know, they look like they could be in the ballpark, bar a little bit of a difference as far as the swirl goes. So I've done a good old swirl, and this is Iridescent Rose from the Leopard palette, and this is Iridescent Rose from this Golden Rose Edit. So here we have the Iridescent Rose in the Leopard palette, and this is the Golden Rose version. I mean, they aren't even close. They're wildly different. So that's great for me, because it means that I actually don't have a repeat where I thought I did, because these are not the same blush colour at all. It also means that, you know, this shade is much deeper and will certainly work on me in the summer, whereas Dim Infusion is definitely a bit light for me, even in winter. So good news for me, but very frustrating when you're reading shade names and trying to work out whether you own, you know, the blush or the bronzer or the highlighter in these palettes, only to find out that actually even the name is not reliable at all. It doesn't necessarily indicate whether you have that colour or not. You just have something with the same name that apparently bears no relation to the other one. Celestial Strobe Light, so that is the highlighter from Leopard. Same name highlighter in this Golden Rose Edit, and these do look more or less identical to me. Probably because the highlighters don't have that swirl, so that can't really affect the shade of it. And then we have the Golden Bronze Light from the Unlocked palette. I can already see that they're different. And the Golden Bronze Light from this new palette. So this is the Unlocked and this is the new palette. So these are quite close. And actually, you know, Unlocked, that is years old now. So that could be, you know, an age difference, but not identical. There's just a slight like undertone difference between the two when you really look up close. I think the new one is just a hair less warm, perhaps, is what I'm seeing. And it feels smoother, but you know, the Unlocked palette is like, what, 5-6 years old now, so fair enough. So that's just something worth considering, that when you're looking at these palettes, I really feel like Hourglass are almost selling themselves short, because on paper they're showing us, oh, it's all repeats in this palette, you know, there's nothing new here, when actually they definitely could have called Iridescent Rose at least a different name, and we would have accepted that that's a new blush, because actually it bears no resemblance, or at least to the Iridescent Rose that I have in my collection already. So yeah, I don't really know what's going on with this. I wish they would be more consistent in the shades of their products. When they're telling us it's the same shade, it needs to like vaguely resemble. You know, we get that there are, you know, formulation upgrades and reformulations and things like that, but there shouldn't be that much of a wild difference, especially when it comes to that specific shade being so different. Dim Infusion I don't own, so I can't show you a comparison, but I have had some of my subscribers over on Instagram telling me, based on my swatch, it does look different to the one that they have. So again, even if you think you've got everything in this palette, you may in fact not. But that is all of the information on this little palette. Let's try it out, whack it on the cheeks and see how it looks. So I know some people find it tricky using, you know, their regular brushes with these smaller pans. I don't really, I'm just using my usual brushes that I would. So I've got my Sonia G Face Pro, which is a very large bronzer brush, and I'm going to use that in that bronzer. This is definitely a warmer bronzer, and I think some of the swatches can sometimes be alarming, but it is one that I really like, and I feel like on the skin it doesn't look as orangey as it perhaps can swatch or look, you know, in the pan. I do find these 4 pans easier to keep your brushes in one specific pan as well, because you can sort of aim it at the corner, because, you know, you've got all this space beside each product. Was when you've got a 6 pan, there are other products in here, some of those middle ones can be harder to reach. So in that respect, the 4 pans are kind of easier to get a large brush in and keep it specifically in the pan you want it in. I think this bronzer swatches extremely metallic. You know, it has a lot of a sort of golden shimmer in there. I feel like a lot of the Hourglass powders, when you swatch them, they look extremely shimmery and can put people off a bit, but actually as you blend it onto the skin, it just becomes beautifully luminous and so like candlelit glow. They're so pretty. I absolutely love Hourglass powders. So you see on the skin, I really don't feel like this bronzer looks orangey at all. I think it looks really beautiful. I mean, in my Unlocked palette, this is like completely flat. I'm pretty confident I could hit pan on this if I, you know, went back and used it a bit more. Such a lovely bronzer. Now the highlighters are always easy to get a brush in because highlighter brushes are typically quite diddy. This is the Sonia G Fan Pro, and I'm going to go easy because Hourglass highlighters, even their strobe formula, which is, you know, less dramatic than their metallic formula, it's pretty punchy, okay? I'm sometimes not prepared for it. And this one is definitely pretty metallic, pretty glowy, but it does really blend beautifully into the skin. You just need to keep on giving it a bit of a buff and it just gets smoother and more luminous just by giving it a bit more of a blend. You can really tailor this to be a bit more of a glow, to tone down how much it enhances texture and get it to be much more seamless. Or you can really go to town if you want something super popping. Very pretty, lovely highlighter shade. Again, one that I really liked in the previous palette that it was in. So I'm going to try both of the blushes today. We'll start off with Dim Infusion on this side. We'll just see if I can build this up to give me a decent blush. I think with a bit of building right now, this is going to work beautifully on me. But I think come summer, it's going to be extremely soft and maybe not show really at all. But right now, I'm definitely with a bit of building, getting some blush, which is beautiful. I have been told that I would like this shade because it's more of a coral. I do really wish Hourglass would give us peachy and neutral blushes. Like, we're crying out for them every year in these holiday palettes. We are like missing coral, peach, neutral blushes. Where are they? This is what we want. They better be coming this year, Hourglass. I'm almost giving up here. And singles as well. Why is everything in a palette? Give us more single blush shades, I beg you. That is beautiful. And as you can see with all of these products, nothing really metallic, everything glowy, luminous, the ambient lighting finishes of the blushes as opposed to their strobe blushes. So nothing is really metallic. So this is Dim Infusion. Clean my same brush. Oh, by the way, this is the Sonia G Detail from the Lotus collection. I'm going to use that apparently iridescent rose shade. This is going to be quite, oh, okay. I thought I was a little scared then, but actually it's fine. Hourglass blushes are very rarely like too much. You know, they're always a bit understated and very buildable. And I think this blush would work beautifully on medium, tan skin, even deeper skin tones with a bit of building. But if you have a deeper skin tone, you don't really want to buy a whole palette just for the one shade that might work, because the bronzer wouldn't work, and obviously the lighter blush shade wouldn't work on a sort of tan to deeper skin tone. So we really do need another variety of this palette. So here we have a lighter layer of Iridescent Rose versus a built up layer of Dim Infusion. This one is definitely a bit more of a berry versus the more sort of corally shade here. I'm going to build this up. This is perfect for me, but I just want to show you how it could be built up if you have a deeper skin tone. See whether you think this would work on you. It's beautiful, so smooth, and that glow is stunning. So you do have, you know, a richer, deeper option and a more soft, subtle option, but there's no doubt that this palette will work best and be most suited to those of us with a fair to medium skin tone, because then you're going to get the most out of the palette. You're going to be able to use the whole palette. I'm just adding some Iridescent Rose on this side so I'm a bit more even. Give myself a bit of a buff to tone down that side where I built everything up. And here is the finished look using this palette. I just love these palettes. They always just delight me. They're always beautiful. The finishes I just find so pretty, and the overall effect with all of the glowy products your heart could possibly desire, I just live for it. Okay, so as far as the formulas in here and the shades in here, I've never been disappointed with the palette. It all comes down to whether you like the shades in there, whether they're going to work for your skin tone. But as far as how they perform on the skin, how the finishes are, the formulations, I've just never been disappointed with an Hourglass palette. I just absolutely love the effect that they give and the beautiful finish of their products. They are just stunning, glorious, right up my street, and these are no exception. The blushes for me are very wearable. The highlighters are lovely, easy going, beautiful but quite versatile formula. The bronzer is gorgeous. No complaints from me. I think this is such a pretty, more travel-friendly, easygoing palette with nothing in here that I won't use, which is usually not the case for the holiday palettes because I just don't use the finishing powders. There's always something in there that I won't use. This has, I will use everything in here, and I could use everything in here every day of my life and be really, really happy with it. So if you don't have a huge collection of Hourglass palettes, I think this is such a great option, especially if you don't use finishing powders. If you do have a lot of Hourglass holiday palettes, obviously this is going to be less worth it probably to you, less different or unique to what you already have in your collection, because even though, you know, the Iridescent Rose blush is very different to the previous version, you know, blushes can only be so different once on the cheeks, can't they? So even if you don't have these exact colours, you probably have some similar colours to these in the Hourglass palettes that you already own. But this for me is, I prefer this to the holiday palettes. It's a 4-pan, of which I will use all 4 pans, and it's more travel friendly. I prefer, as I said, this packaging. It feels more luxurious. I think it's more beautiful to look at. I like that the mirror stands up by itself, and I think it's easier to get brushes in because, like I said, every shade is like on the edge, whereas if you're trying to get a large, you know, blush brush into these middle pans, it's harder because you've got other products on either side, so it's a little trickier to get larger brushes in there sometimes. But I just all around prefer the size of these. I wish they would bring, they did do a 4-pan one year, didn't they, at holiday? Was it the Ghost 4-pan? But we haven't really seen them very often or since then. I would love to give us some 4-pans without finishing powders, or give us 6 pans without finishing powders but more blushes. I would love that for us. I would really, really love like 4 blushes, a bronzer and a highlight. That would be personally what I would love, but I know a lot of you guys are actually sad that there's no finishing powders in here, so it all just depends what you're looking for. For me, I'm really happy with this. You know, the blush that I do have already is actually not the same, so that's great. I have 2 new blushes that I didn't have in my collection, and I feel like I'm much more likely to reach for this. I'm certainly much more likely to take this with me wherever I go because it is smaller, I can use the mirror, and it doesn't have products in there that I won't use and are taking up space and making for a larger component as well as a larger price tag. So there you have it. Those are all of my thoughts and all of the information on this new palette from Hourglass. I highly suspect, as I said, that it is most likely to be limited edition. So don't hang around if this is something that you think you desperately need for your collection. But also if you have a lot of Hourglass palettes, holiday palettes, don't feel like you need to run out and get this one, even if it, you know, does have shades that you don't already have in your collection. A lot of these products, once on the skin, you know you're going to get the same effect. If you have any previous palette from their holiday collection, you will get the same effect. May the colors be slightly different, yes, sure. Does that mean you desperately need it and you can't live without it? I wouldn't have thought so. Please let me know if you're picking this up. Are you excited for it? Are you disappointed that it's all re-promoted shades? What are your thoughts about finishing powder in or out? Please let us know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. But I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.